Welcome to an exciting adventure in the world of otters. Yes, you guessed it. We are about to embark on a journey filled with fun, discovery, and meeting one of the cutest creatures around. I am thrilled to be your host, George Malukran, as we dive into the fascinating lives of otters. One tip from me before we get started, use the chat to send us your questions, your comments, and our friends from ZooMontana will respond. And teachers, parents, and everyone watching, have your cameras ready because we will have a chance to take a selfie with our special guest. All right, in just a moment, we're going to travel over to ZooMontana, but first, let the countdown begin. All good. Hello, and welcome to today's Flip event. I am George Malukran from Team Flip, and I cannot wait for today's adventure. Picture this, a playful splash, a furry face popping out of the water, and mischievous eyes twinkling with joy. That's right, we're about to meet the most adorable animals on the planet, otters. So get ready to laugh, learn, and be amazed as we explore this watery world. Before we get started, special shout out to Mr. Edwards' grade 5 class joining in from Fort Macleod, Alberta, Canada, Mrs. Wilson, Miss Goldman's class, 5th grade from Pawtucket. Man, there's so many people. Rhode Island, Mrs. Rose's class from Sun Valley, Mrs. Seaton's 1st grade class from Dania Beach, Florida. Thank you so much for being out there. I know my mom's out there as well. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. And I think we're really ready to get started. I'm so giddy, as you can tell. So gather around, everyone, because our otter adventure is about to begin. So let's travel over to Billings, Montana, and meet Amber from ZooMontana. Amber, over to you.
Hi, George. I'm
Hello.
so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having us.
Of course.
Well, hello, Flippers. We are so excited to have you guys all joining us all the way in Montana for World Otter Day. The World Otter Day is a celebration throughout the world about all things otters. So it's a day to celebrate our furry friends and learn what we can do to best coexist with these really cool creatures. So first, where are we live from? So I am so excited to be live from Billings, Montana. If you look at that little cowboy hat on the eastern side of the Montana state there, that is where we're located. So there's a lot of agriculture, a lot of cowboy motifs, a lot of Native American culture around here. So we like to tell people we're actually in the Wild West. Montana is a very popular tourist destination. So if you guys are visiting this summer, please make sure to stop by and even meet maybe one of our special guests. So a few more things about the zoo. ZooMontana is home to more than 80 animals and more than 56 different species. The zoo is what's called a 45th parallel zoo, which means that we care for animals that live on that same latitude line or above. So those are kind of like the northern hemisphere. The 45th parallel is pretty cool because it's actually halfway between the equator and halfway between the North Pole. And so our winters tend to be super duper cold and our summers tend to be super duper hot. So we have to have animals that can thrive in those conditions. And so we have a lot of northern animals, including our guest today, the North American river otters. So the IOSF is the foundation that puts on the World Otter Day each year. And what are they kind of responsible for? So their main focus is the conservation and protection of all species of otters for future generations. Their organization focuses a lot on education about otters because lack of awareness is one of the biggest threats to this species and actually all species. IOSF has volunteers all over the world ready to educate about all things otters. They conduct research, they provide training, and one of their big causes is to reduce the otter fur and pet trade. Another cool responsibility that falls under their jurisdiction is the Otter Hospital. So you can see that picture of the baby otter right in the middle there. They are actually responsible and have cared for over 200 injured and orphaned otters. And so they keep those until they are ready to be released back into the wild, which is about 1.5 to 2 years. So otters are part of a really cool animal family called the Mustelidae family. So this is a special family of animals that's known for being quite ferocious despite their really tiny size. So even though they might seem super cute and cuddly, they can be really, really dangerous. One of my favorite examples that I like to use at the zoo here is that of Mr. Otterton from Zootopia. So just in like that movie, when Mr. Otterton is in the back of the police car and he is clawing and he's being very crazy, that is very similar to the way that a weasel would act if backed into a corner. So like their cousins, the badgers and the wolverines, otters have a really intense bite and incredibly strong teeth. You can see that on their skulls there. Otters are also really fascinating because they're one of the only members of any animal family that it has a semi-aquatic ability, meaning they spend a lot of time on land and in the water. There are actually 13 different species of otter, and they can be found all over the world. Some common nicknames that these guys go by is a river wolf or a water dog. In the United States, we actually have two species of otters. So we have the largest otter, which is the sea otter, and then more inland, we have North American river otters, which are found all over the United States, and we also lovingly refer to them as narrows. Otters are a very essential indicator species, meaning that in these 5 continents, if an otter is inhabiting a place that you can actually assume that that's a pretty clean ecosystem. Otters will usually be the first to leave an area due to things like pollution or due to a river not being habitable anymore. When otters do leave, it is very hard on an ecosystem because of how integral they are and how much they contribute to our river and wetland spots. So, like I said before, these guys are really cool because of their ability to live on land and in the water. So how do they do that? Especially when otters swim in really frozen places like Alaska. How do they keep warm in that really frozen water? So I do have another example. We see that seal in the corner there. And seals are another animal that is semi-aquatic, both on land and in sea. But however, they have that extra layer of fat called blubber that helps them keep warm in those climates. But because otters need to stay sleek to be able to move the way that they need to, they can't have that extra layer of blubber that would slow them down the way that seals are. So instead, what they have is pretty cool. They actually have 2 coats. So they have an inner coat that's right next to their skin that keeps them nice and warm. And then their outer coat is actually a waterproof layer that keeps that inside coat nice and dry. So scientists are actually using otters to now find new technology for wetsuits because of the way their coats work. Another cool thing that they have is those webbed toes so that they can swim better. And they have 5 footprints that gives them 5 footprints instead of most animals that have like the 4. Their tail is incredibly strong. It acts like a rudder and it will help them steer through the water, just like on a ship. Another cool adaptation they have is they have this 3rd eyelid that is clear. And so that acts as swim goggles for when they're in the water. They can just drop that down, see perfectly through it, and then water's not getting in their eyes. Another cool thing is their ears actually and nose actually have the ability to close up too. So when they're swimming, no water or gets into the ears or nose. So that's pretty cool. So at ZooMontana, we do have 3 North American river otters that live with us, Ben, Mia, and Sam. Ben and Mia are both around 14 and came to ZooMontana together in 2009. Ben and Mia had broken into a fishery in Louisiana and were causing some problems, by eating all the fish. And an individual that had a trapper's license acquired Ben and Mia and ended up donating them to the zoo when he found out that we had the room. Ben and Mia have been super prolific parents. So they've had 4 litters of pups. Their last litter was the one that Sam was born into. So Sam is actually their son. However, by the time Sam was born, Mia had was ready to stop being a mom. She was ready to just focus on being a wild otter and, play and have fun and not have so many duties. So Sam and his brothers were actually raised by some of our keepers. We are going to go check in with Ben, Mia, and Sam's keeper Allison at the otter habitat so that we can learn more about what it's like to be an otter keeper. Allison?
Were you surprised? Do you think that Ben, Mia, and Sam have some distinctive personalities, or they kind of all act like otters?
Yes, they for sure have distinctive personalities. I would say so even for pretty much every animal on the zoo, even like the inverts, like the tarantulas. Our tarantulas even have their own personality. So Ben, Mia, and Sam, yes, for sure. If you want to distinguish between them, if you visit, Sam, we like to call him Samathan, he is always swimming in that lower pond area. So he just goes back and forth and back and forth. He loves to follow little kids when they run around, so he's quite the ham, yes. He's got a cute little face. He's very needy. He was raised by a human mama, so he loves seeing his human mama, so whenever we walk by, he, of course, wants to say hi to us. Benjamin, he acts like a big, tough otter, but he's kind of a big baby when it comes down to it, but he's a protector of the group, I would say. And Mia, she's the mama. She likes to do her own thing. She's a strong, independent woman.
I love that.
She'll let the boys play and play and play, and then she'll kind of come in and play with them, and she gets sick of them and go and take a nap. It's a lot of work being a mom.
It is a lot of work being a mom, that's for sure. Was being an otter keeper your dream job?
I honestly had no clue that I was going to work with otters when I was growing up. I did have a rabbit, and his name was Otter, so it must have just been a meant-to-be sort of thing. But I did know ever since I was this big that I wanted to work with zoo animals, and you know what? I think I am doing my dream job. I say yes.
Nice, I love that. So we have 3 otters here at ZooMontana, Ben, me, and Sam. How long have you been working with them?
I've been working with them for about 6 years now.
Nice, that's amazing. What is maybe one of your favorite memories or funny stories you have of these 3?
I would say one of my most memorable moments was when I found baby otters in their night house. We had no idea Mama was pregnant. I walked in one day into their night house and I saw this little thing crawling around. I thought it was a muskrat, a really weird looking muskrat. I looked closer and it was a baby otter, and then behind it were 3 more baby otters. So surprise, surprise, we had babies.
Oh my gosh.
And of course, it was the coldest day in February too.
Wow, that must have been quite an adventure. And I heard that you actually took one of those otters home to bottle feed them.
I took not only 1, but 2 of them home. But we only made that call because we gave Mama a chance to raise her babies. Ben and Mia here are really good at raising families on their own. However, that time around, she just didn't want to. We gave her a couple hours alone with the baby, some privacy, but she didn't want anything to do with them. So we had to choose to either hand raise them at the zookeepers' houses or let them die. And so we chose to raise them at our houses. We still didn't think they were going to make it. It's very, very hard to raise baby river otters. You know, if you imagine a kitten, imagine a river otter. You know, what do we do with those guys? So 3 out of the 4 actually lived to adulthood. So we're pretty proud of that. It was the worst, best experience of my life. So I give Mama's props because it is a lot of work taking care of a baby animal.
So one of the things that I find really surprising is that otters aren't born with the ability to swim. So when you were hand raising those otters, did you have to then teach them how to swim?
I did. I had to teach them how to swim. Now, I didn't do it like Mama naturally would. I didn't grab them with my teeth and go swimming in a swimming pool with them. Mine was done in the bathroom at home. We had the sink and I had them in my hands and just kind of slowly put them in a sink filled with water, and they cried and cried and cried, which is normal till they get used to it. But eventually we did graduate from swimming around in a little sink to a bigger bathtub, and I'd say within 2 weeks they were naturals. They were like little porpoises.
Oh, that's amazing. That must have been quite the experience.
It was pretty neat.
Okay, so do you have some enrichment and that kind of thing to show us today?
I do, yeah. I have some enrichment for you guys to see. Otters are active. They do like to nap sometimes, but when they're not napping, they're swimming, playing. So as zookeepers, we have to provide these animals with something to do all the time, right? Like you guys at home will play video games, go on a hike, maybe read a book. What are the otters going to do? They're going to play with some toys that we give them. If you want to see Sam's favorite toy, it's this. No, not yogurt. An empty cup. He takes this and he puts it on his head and he swims around like a little narwhal.
Oh my gosh, I love that. That's so cute.
We also have this. You guys might recognize this from PetSmart or something. It is a puzzle feeder, so it's rubber. We can actually stick whole fish in here and give it to the otters, and they got to work their way getting the fish out of there. We also like to give them some dog kibble or cat kibble sometimes. Really good for teeth health. So we put the kibble in this hole, set it down, and they have to roll it around until the kibble comes out. And the last thing I have to show you guys is what we call a otter jellyfish. So some wonderful volunteers made this for us. It's a piece of wood with some car wash strips on it. It floats in the water. It looks just like a jellyfish, and they love playing in little frills.
That's so what is one thing that you think is really important for people to know about otters?
I think it's very important for people to know that these animals are not pets. Never, ever, ever would I want to take one home again unless it was a life or death situation like those babies. I kind of did have one almost like a pet for a while in my house for about 8 months, and oh my goodness, there was poop everywhere. They were eating things they shouldn't eat.
Oh
like,
my gosh.
it was quite a nightmare. They look very, very cuddly, and maybe at a time the baby otters were with me, but within 3 months they weren't wanting to be on their own. They didn't really want to do anything with me. They were biting me. We joke that the river otters are mini fuzzy velociraptors, and if I was to go in there with them right now, I would probably not have a good day.
Yeah, for sure. So that's important to keep in mind. And then what is something that our friends from Flip can do to help with otters, with the conservation of this important indicator species?
I'd say pick up after yourself. Otters are a very important species to wetlands areas, and wetland areas can be very sensitive to things like pollution, especially from like a lot of fishing hooks, fishing lines. That stuff gets tangled up in them, in their food. They can ingest it, they get tangled up in it, they can drown underwater. Even just trash, trash pollutants in their streams, that makes the fish population decline, and if the otters don't have any fish to eat, then they're going to ultimately die too, or try migrating to other areas. They might get run over on the roads, or they might not find another clean habitat to thrive in. So I say, yep, just clean up after yourself, and as always, respect the wildlife.
All right, perfect. Well, thank
All right, perfect. Thank you so much, Allison. So what are some things that you can do? So some ways that you can help our otter friends, like Allison said, is you can pick up after yourself, make sure the fishing line and things are thrown away, make sure any trash that you bring into the wild you take out with you. You can do reusable water bottles. Visit the IOSF website. They have lots of different ideas how you can give back. But most importantly, just educate yourself, and just remember that our water is precious. All right, George?
Yeah, Amber, I love this. This has been so good, especially you and Allison walking through it. I feel like I love otters, and that's like basically all I know about it, that and Otterson from Zootopia. But like, I feel like I learned so much from you and Allison. Just like, one, I didn't realize they wore 2 coats. I feel like that's me in Minnesota in like the winter wearing 2 coats, and like otters do it all the time. But then also just like the awareness of like, being a good neighbor to otters, like just being will pick up after yourselves, like less pollution, because that actually will help, otters be healthy and safe and stay in those environments. So we can all do our part. So thank you again. And we're seeing so many amazing questions coming through the chat. So keep them coming, because we're going to take a moment and do one of my favorite things at these Flip events, which is the selfie time. So everyone out there, get your cameras ready, gather in front of the screens in your classroom at home, hop out of your beanbag, wherever you're watching. We're going to give you a few seconds to get set up, but in the meantime, we're going to cue some music. All right, I think we're ready. Let's take some selfies. Amber, will you do us the countdown, please?
Yes, of course. So let's go 3, 2, 1.
I love it. Thanks again so much for being here, Amber. I hope everyone out there is having a good time and learning a lot because I know I am. And we'd love to see those selfies we just took with Amber. So please post them on social. You can tag Microsoft Flip and ZooMontana. All right, now we're going to go on to your questions. So thank you again for everyone that put questions in the chat. Amber, I hope there's some time that you can be able to answer some of these burning questions people have about otters. The first one is from Miss Bross's sixth grade class asking, what do otters like to eat?
So otters love fish. So 80% of their diet is fish, but they do supplement that diet with a few other things. Like they'll eat crustaceans, amphibians, maybe an insect or two, but they mostly love fish. A really cool adaptation that I forgot to mention about otters is their whiskers are actually really, really sensitive. So they can even detect prey animals under mud using their whiskers. So that's pretty neat. A really neat way to find food.
Wow, that's cool. In that case, I guess that's pretty smart. And that's what kind of Jason is asking. Are otters smart?
Yes, they're incredibly intelligent animals. Most of the weasel family is very intelligent. It's part of the intelligent animals tend to get into a bit more trouble because of that curiosity that they have. And so that is, like I said, when Ben and Mia were found in those fisheries, they kept breaking in. And so I think you have to have a certain level of intelligence to be getting through human locks, that kind of thing. So yes, definitely very intelligent.
I love that. I love this next question from Adriana, and I hope this is true. Adriana is wanting to know if otters like to collect shiny rocks and give them to their loved ones. I cannot imagine if an otter came up to me and gave me a shiny rock. That would just make my world.
Would that not be the cutest thing? So I believe that is mostly a sea otter thing. I think that sea otters tend to be those ones with those shells and that kind of thing. The North American river otters aren't as, I don't think they're quite as giving. So they kind of don't give presents as often. So, but there are species of otters that do that, yes.
Oh, that's so cool. Is it based on like any sort of seasonality, or is it just kind of like, just to show like almost like a love language of like the otter that do give like the gifts like that?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's similar to some birds and that kind of thing will do that. They'll give those presents away just to kind of, honestly, probably the same way that people do, just to show like a caring and affection towards, just kind of showing, hey, I like you. You'll maybe would like this, and kind of that mutual affection kind of. Yes, definitely.
Very neat. Very neat. All right, Luke C would like to know, where do otters like to live, and where is the best places to find them?
All right, so that's a great question. So otters, they do live all over the place. So they can live in rivers, the ocean. They can live in places like bogs even. They live in bogs in England, which is really crazy. So they are pretty adaptable. They have, their houses are called holts. And so those will be, you could maybe see a house. But one of the best ways to tell if an otter has been somewhere is their poop. It's called sprinks, and they will leave that in places kind of to mark their territory the way that maybe a dog would. And the cool thing about it is they actually kind of have a latrine spot, like the way a human would, that's not too close to their house, where they kind of make their markings. But that's one of the best ways to figure out if an otter's in the area.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Cool. Oh, here we go. How long can otters stay underwater? Oh, interesting.
So you might think that otters could hold their breath for a really long time, because I think it's something, some spiders can even hold their breath for something like 60 minutes, but otters can only hold their breath for 8 minutes. So not a super long time, but they can dive all the way down to 60 feet, but they do have to come up for air pretty much every 8 minutes.
Yeah, still 8 minutes. That's longer than I can, for sure. Yeah, and then also being able to go underwater. Scarlett would like to know, what is the average lifespan of an otter?
So in the wild, they live about 15 years. In human care, they can live to be about 20-25. So like our otters being 14, they're about middle-aged.
Got it. That was actually one of the questions, like, how old are your otters? So about 14 years old then at your...
So, well, Ben and me are 14, and then Sam just had his 5th birthday, so he just turned 5.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
Mrs. Z's class is asking, how big can otters get?
Oh, so that's a really good question. So the North American river otters, they can be about a foot, 13 to 16 inches. So they're not super big. But sea otters, however, they can get quite long, and giant otters can be quite long. I think giant otters can be something like 4 or 5 feet long, so quite big, depending on the species.
Sure, yeah. And I think we have time for one more question. This, I think, is like maybe our own internal team is asking, but why do otters hold hands while they sleep? I didn't even know this. Is that a thing?
It is a thing. Again, I think it's basically different species. It's a big thing for sea otters, again, to hold hands. And I think it's they don't want to drift away from each other kind of thing. So they are very social animals. A lot of times they will live in groups, and I think it's a way just to make sure the group stays together when they're sleeping and no one drifts off. So
yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Holding hands and you're all together. Amber,
yep, exactly.
thank you so much for the time and just sharing your insights and knowledge and experience of all about otters, and then also answering these incredible questions from the audience. With that, I know we're wrapping up the event, but I wanted to give you the platform. Any final thoughts you'd like to share with everyone watching?
Yes, of course. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us for World Otter Day. We do have a bunch of ways that you can reach out to ZooMontana through our website, Facebook, that kind of thing. And then also we do have this free virtual 30-minute program if anybody wants to have us stream into their classrooms at some point. But we all are just so excited that we were able to be here today. And thank you so much for Flip for inviting us.
No, it was our honor. And thank you so much again, Amber, for being here. And I hope to see you very, very soon.
Yes, thank you.
See you later. That was amazing. And now the learning and inspiration is never over. Head on over to aka.ms/Otters topic to find today's topic so your learners can reflect on all that they learned during today's live event about otters. And even though we're wrapping up for today, we have one more amazing Flip event next week that we're hoping to see you all there. Head on over to aka.ms/Flip events to register for our upcoming underwater event with our friends from California State Parks. And yes, you heard that right. We're going to be underwater. Crazy. And don't forget, all our events are also available on demand to watch anytime because the learning never stops. That's it for today. I'm your host, George Malukrin, and on behalf of Flip, ZooMontana, and our amazing, amazing guest, Amber, thank you for spending time with us, and we'll see you next time.